I've heard multiple times people will say, okay, let's have a protest to demand this or protest to demand that. Privately, I will speak to organizers of this protest and tell them, I don't trust the system. You only protest to somebody who has the capacity to listen to you. These ones do not have the capacity to listen or the will to change. So going to protest will not work. I used to say this repeatedly, and I stand by what I used to say. But protests come in different forms. What I am proposing, and I would like to hear what you all have to say. Let's take our time. Let's talk through this and let's debate it. I'm of the opinion that we should have a national sit-at-home on the 3rd of December. I was careful to run away from the 2nd. I don't want to have a situation where our Ipob brothers and myself will now be conflicted with each other. That is not to denigrate whatever anybody is doing to win their freedom. But I am proposing, I repeat myself, 3rd of December, let us sit at home. I was away in the United States in September and most of October. And in the course of that time away, as it would usually happen with me, I was opportune to see our country a little clearer. You know, those who are used to astronomy, stargazers, they will tell you that you actually see clearest, you see the stars clearest when you are in a very dark place. So I left Nigeria, I was out of it, and I've noticed that each time I'm away from Nigeria, I am better able to see Nigeria, think a little clearer, maybe because one can function a little more humanly rather than the automaton that you have to be if you must survive Nigeria. You would have heard me say in the past that you've got to remove your brain once you come through our airport, put it in a container so that you don't use your brain to engage with the madness that we live with, that is our daily reality. And you would also have heard me say on multiple occasions that if there were to be a spare part market for human brains, the Nigerian brain would be a bestseller because to a very large extent, truth be told, is rarely ever used. So, and that applies to almost all of us. But the point I'm seeking to make is that whilst I was out of the country, I was able to see things a little clearer, as I was saying. And in the course of that, I found myself drawn repeatedly to the story of the lepers, as was told in the Bible, 2 Kings chapter 7 from verse 3 to 8. That is what that was what interested me. That story kept nagging at my consciousness all the time I was out of the country. And I am honored and privileged to have the friendship of Pastor Sam Aedogbon. So I discussed this with him. And between us, we contrived to have me speak. And I thank God for the grace and the privilege. If you haven't seen that message, I'm sure you would have seen snippets of it, but I would encourage you, take your time, watch it, because it also offers some level of context for what I want to speak about today. I was constrained by the pulpit from which I was speaking, not necessarily because anybody placed any constraint on me, but respect for the altar from where I was speaking, respect for the man of God who was good enough to offer me his pulpit, and perhaps because it wasn't time, there were things I realized that I wanted to say that I couldn't say, maybe because of want of time, but there were just things I couldn't say that didn't come, that started coming to me after the fact, even after I had had weeks to ruminate over that story and how it applies within the Nigerian context. So I believe it was after that, by Thursday, I told my assistant that I would like to stay with the lepers allegory, the imagery and the symbolisms of the lepers in that story as told in 2 Kings chapter 7, verse 3 to 8. So this week, having talked last week about the urgency of now, that urgency has not disappeared. But in the urgency of now, we have taken a walk that has now brought us to this moment. And today, what I want us to discuss or talk about Is Nigeria the lepers' colony? Yeah, you heard me right. Let me repeat myself. Nigeria, the lepers' colony. Those of you who studied English language to an extent, and those of you who have followed me for a season, you understand the fact that I am a student of languages, particularly the English language. And I do not like linguistic inexactitude. That is when you use words without communicating properly what it is that you intend. So when I say Nigeria, the lepers' colony, and I need you to distinguish, we will get there eventually, but it is important that you know that what I have said is Nigeria, the lepers' colony. I didn't say the colony of lepers. I said the lepers' colony. So let us look at this. What do I mean by the lepers' colony? Leprosy is limiting. Yorubas have a proverb that succinctly describes or explains the dilemma of leprosy. The Yorubas would say, "Abere bolowo adete odete." There is a difference between interpretation and translation. If I would translate that for you, I would say that the leper's needle falls on the ground and he struggles to pick it because of the absence of digits. But it will be wrong. Because you have to understand the graphic imagery painted by the Yoruba scripture, Abere bolowo adete odede. It speaks to the dilemma of the man without fingers who has to pick up a needle from the floor. The floor is almost always a dirt floor, sand. Even if it were to be whatever sort of surface it might be, when a man is without digits, how does he pick the needle? If you've taken the time to listen to my sermon last week, or if you are familiar with the story of the lepers that's told, you would, of course, understand that it is we Nigerians that I have referred to as lepers. We're the lepers in the story. We're limited by our environment, by the system that we have built. Nnamdi Kanu, in seeking to define Nigeria, he called it a zoo. You must have heard me or read me say variously that I disagree with him. That Nigeria cannot be called a zoo, because if Nigeria were to be a zoo in any other country other than Nigeria, the administrators of that zoo would be facing criminal charges in courts. If Nigeria were to be a zoo, that zoo would have lost its license to operate. If Nigeria were to be a zoo in any country other than Nigeria, the entire wide world would be up in uproar. Nigeria is not a zoo. No zoologist worthy of his name will keep animals in the condition that the Nigerian has been kept by the Nigerian state and its ruiners. So I disagree with Nnamdi Kanu. There are many things he says that I agree with. Aside from methodologies, I have zero or next to nothing in relation to disagreement, to disagree when it comes to his diagnosis. But when it comes to calling Nigeria a zoo, Nigeria is not a zoo. I have also been heard calling Nigeria a jungle until I believe about a couple of years ago, I traveled out of the country, and no, it's longer than that. I traveled out of the country and I went to the UK, a place I had routinely gone to for decades. And I found that when I got into the UK, I couldn't function because I realized actually Nigeria is not a jungle. Jungles function on order. You can predict the seasons in the jungle. Animals know their places in the jungle. Everybody operates by divine orchestration and order. The jungle operates on law. We call that the law of nature, but the jungle operates on law. It functions on the basis of predictable order. That is the jungle. Nigeria does not function on the basis of any predictable order. The only thing that you can predict about Nigeria is that what should happen will not happen, and what shouldn't happen are the things that we have all normalized. So Nigeria is not a jungle. Nigeria is the leper's colony. For the benefit of those who were not in church last Sunday, literally, what is the leper's colony? I've just told you about the dilemma of the leper when the leper seeks to pick up his needle. But how do you call the Nigerian a leper? If you look to the story as told in that biblical passage, you'd find that the lepers were outside the city gates. The city gate provides protection for those within its walls. That is allegorical of a state, of a protective entity. For you to have a gate, you must have walls. As fearful as the city was, they were still behind the wall. But the lepers, they were at the gate. Not within, not without. They were not disallowed from entry, mind you. It's just that those whose beneficiaries they would have fed from are also starving because of the siege. And in any case, what was the point of going around streets where people are already hungry and hostile? So they sat at the city gate, excluded. That is how the Nigerian is routinely excluded from the society. Left out, shut out. The others were inside. The Nigerian is the leper, always at the city gate. I recall that in my sermon last week, I alluded to our brother, the boat driver and Cosmos, or the mascot. I referred to him, but he's only important in the context of discussion today because during the course of the week, we were all entertained or repulsed, as the case may be, by the video he made apologizing. But here is the thing, what did you expect of him? Exactly what were you expecting of him? If he had said he was going to court, he would still meet the same people in court. Now, have you forgotten? Mascot was given 500,000 bail, I think. Those boys got 10 million naira bail. And I think one or two shorty, before your outcries, led to their release. And by the time they were releasing them, did you notice that they appear to have been grandfathers being released instead of the young boys that we saw in court? So you find a situation where once you build a system that systematically excludes, which is the society that has been built by Nigeria, and understand that the exclusion is not found on any one of the many things that we have clung to as the basis for our disadvantages. We would like to think it's about tribe, ethnicity. I'm sure. Remember Abu, the sex toy one that was busy slapping? Yeah, it's from a northern minority ethnic group, minority religious group, but he had the powers of impunity that we would all prefer to ascribe to whichever tribe or ethnic group has power and is riding roughshod over everybody. Remember, we would have said, he's a northerner. For Abo, nothing happened. He slapped happily, left, right, and center. Maybe money changed that at the end of the day, I don't know that detail. And then the boat driver, what did you want of him? Where is the system to protect him? He's a leper like me and you. He took what he considered the best deal in the circumstances. A man tells you that he will make you disappear because you are rude to him. And then you go and you start talking about court. Which court? What courts? So let's not, I'm just trying to help us to understand the fact of our leprosy so that you understand that we have built a system that excludes. a system that is not excluding on the basis of ethnicity. It is not excluding on the basis of religiosity. It excludes on the basis of social class. If you're rich, you can't do any wrong in Nigeria. And if you run afoul of some rich person and it's punishing you, or the system itself is punishing you, and you can afford it, eventually, even if you are convicted like Bobrisky was convicted, you really didn't need to worry, because eventually there is an apartment somewhere for convicted criminals who can afford it. So at the end of the day, you have a system that has continued to exclude. But remember what I said to you at the beginning. There's a difference between the leper's colony and the colony of leper. The leper's colony is the one that is built without the will of the lepers, built by external forces, by persons external to the lepers. They are forced to live in the state of leprosy. The Nigerian may excuse himself and say that that is the situation. After all, Britain cobbled this together, and after all, he has never had his will expressed. Even I have said so multiple times. But at some point, the colony of lepers, this is the difference now, the colony of lepers, because we have will. We are the ones who have built this lepers colony by abdicating the responsibility to build our own country. We failed to take our fate in our hand. We have built the lepers colony. I see you, treasure, hold on, I'm getting there. You say, what's the solution? The solution is clear. The solution became even clearer after the death of my friend, Adesina Ogunlanu. We are all creatures in time, and we must identify that which has been given to us to do within a specific time span, your lifetime. Play your part. What's the solution? Find a country. How do you find a country? Take responsibility for your lives. I have heard people talking about waiting until 2027. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing in 2027 that we did not do in 2023. Yeah, we probably would have more time, but nothing would change. For as long as INEC is INEC, our courts remain our courts, and we do nothing but wait until 2027 for something to change. We have the lepers colony, but there is a colony of lepers. The colony of lepers is the one that the lepers, recognizing the limitation that they live with, they are constrained, they recognize it, and then they figure out a way to come out of the mess they are in. And the way out is very simple. One, you either pick up the gun, which many people have variously advocated, or you take the other path, which is the one I have always advocated, non-violent. But non-violent should not be equated with cowardice. It should not be equated with non-action. It should not be equated with simply folding our hands and waiting for death to come. At some point, we're going to have to draw a line in the sand. I've said that pretty often, right? So this is the line I want us to draw in the sand. Tinubu is already the president of Nigeria. No amount of denials will change that. If you removed Tinubu tomorrow and you kept any number of the many persons that you and I would prefer to have in that office, with the system remaining as it is, where INEC can pronounce whoever they care as having been elected, and where the courts, as corrupt as they are, would ensure that your will do not prevail. For as long as that remains the case, 2027 is lost. So if we can all agree on that, let's be clear about something. Remove Tinubu, nothing will change. Put any one of the other ones. Remove the state houses of assemblies and all of that until such a time as when the system changes. And that system will not change if you do not change the operators of the system. The first demand that must be unequivocal across the length and breadth of Nigeria is a demand for electoral reform. When I say electoral reform, let me be clear. It is not one of those endless journey to nowhere. We must set a timeline. I am of the view that we should set Tuesday, the 3rd of December as timeline for this to happen. Let a bill be before the National Assembly, making clear that one, independent candidacy must be allowed in our electoral process, and I will explain why. If you have independent candidacy, the powers of the political parties, the need to band behind a behemoth in order to thwart the will of the Nigerian people will be broken. Those who believe themselves relevant to the lives of their communities would not need to win any party's nomination to be able to run in election. That is first. The second thing that must happen, electronic transmission of results from the polling unit level must become compulsory, and it must be unambiguously spelled out in that amendment. Let us be clear. When I say February 3rd, what I'm saying for February 3rd is very simple. Once upon a time, I've heard multiple times people will say, okay, let's have a protest to demand this or protest to demand that. Privately, I will speak to organizers of this protest and tell them, I don't trust the system. You only protest to somebody who has the capacity to listen to you. These ones do not have the capacity to listen or the will to change. So going to protest will not work. I used to say this repeatedly, and I stand by what I used to say. But protests come in different forms. What I am proposing, and I would like to hear what you all have to say. Let's take our time. Let's talk through this and let's debate it. I'm of the opinion that we should have a national sit-at-home on the 3rd of December. I was careful to run away from the 2nd. I don't want to have a situation where our Ipob brothers and myself will now be conflicted with each other. That is not to denigrate whatever anybody is doing to win their freedom. But I am proposing, I repeat myself, 3rd of December, let us sit at home. Nobody is forcing anyone to do so. Those who wish to go, if you are not touched by the problems that have overtaken all of us, can jolly well go out. But we cannot call you to the street because of fear of you being shot and killed. We can't call you to the street for fear that the state will energize their counterparts in the criminal world to attack you or hijack the protest. But we can urge you, one day, just one day, at least give them the understanding that you are tired of this gate where you are sat. And it's for one single demand: reform the electoral process. Look, would they listen? I don't know. But are you listening? That is what is important. Sit in your house on that day. Let them see by you sitting in your house. I'm not saying go out and block road. I'm not saying go and burn tires. I'm not saying throw stones. Sit in your house. Those who want to go out, allow them to go where they want to go. If you have been touched and you are interested in anything changing, if you say that you desire Odua Republic, for instance, let's talk about this. You desire Odua Republic, and you desire it, not stepping on the blood of the people, but you want to mobilize them for change, which you desire. And the same goes for my Biafran brothers as well. You desire a Biafra Republic, but you are not going to do it against the will of the people. You are going to have to win it politically. If that is the case, why not join in persuading the people to sit at home so that our votes must be allowed to count? It is in our votes meaning something that will become free. Whatever it is you desire, when your votes are free, run as the Ipob candidate in Aba against that stupid mascot that is slapping people. If your votes begin to count, run anywhere in Nigeria to propagate your ideas and ideals, unless, of course, you had no interest in democracy prima facie and you are merely interested in lauding your own view over other people. Democracy exists when the will of the people is respected. So insist on the sacrosanct of our votes. Just one day. It may or may not do nothing. But we cannot continue to sit down, belly aching, waiting for 2027. We can't. We simply can't. You know, I can't get rid of this song in my head since my friend passed. Just like I can't get over the shock of his passage. He says, "Sheyi to she ore mi ojo nlo, do what you will do. Time is going." If you are in your 50s like me, you witnessed a functional country, as dysfunctional as it was. It did work to an extent. It worked to educate me, the son of a nobody. But that system worked to educate me because my mother, God bless her, hardworking, visionary. But she had a functional system to work with. Do you understand? Where is the system now? It's gone. It's gone. If you are waiting for 2027, it's gone. Everything is getting progressively worse every blessed day. Every day is getting worse. You remember, most of you, the only time you go to the villages now is when you go burying some grandparent or uncle. Nobody goes to the villages anymore, just like nobody really comes to Nigeria anymore. We only come to Nigeria to bury people. It's become a burial place of lives and hopes. Are we going to keep folding our hands like this? How? Look, for a long time, I have belly ached, diagnosed our problems, sought to persuade you to see what should be right on top of your nostrils. Many times I'll tell you things you'd consider outrageous. But hey, time, like they say, prove all lies. You prefer your lying pastors and imams who feed you religious idiocy and fantasies. They ask you to pray. Told some jokers have asked you to come and pray for 40 days again. The one who started, they were busy worshiping in Ife. The other day is also meant to be leading you in national prayers. They are praying on you, pretending to pray for you. All of them, without exception. All of them. God is the God of truth. What happened to the truth on their lips? Sealed. And then they're asking you to pray. Let us be clear. If you are not going to pick up guns to free yourselves, and I don't recommend it, they would prefer that you did that. They are the purveyors of violence, and they own all the levers of violence. Saw them elevating MC Oluomo to national president. Lagos has gone national, that's what they are telling you. Killer squads in every state to silence you if you dare to speak. And you are still there, debating whether you should sit at home for one day. Let us dare to speak with one voice, just one day. Sit at home. Just sit in your house. And it don't go better for anybody who dare to talk to me about, it's my right as a citizen to sit in my house and to counsel my fellow citizens. You have to pretend that we're in a democracy, right? All of us have to pretend we're in a democracy. I'm pretending we're in a democracy. You are also having to pretend that we're in a democracy. And if we're in a democracy, it is my right as a citizen to peacefully sit in my house. I am not forcing anyone to stay in their own homes. But I'm asking you. You're asking me, how can one galvanize Nigerians to sit at home? Go out there on your own. I'm doing my own bit. You do your own. I do mine, you do yours. Go out there. You are the ones who need to speak to people. Help them understand the need. This is a peaceful way of forcing the change that we require. Let's try it. Let's try it for a change. The lepers colony is the one built for the lepers. The colony of lepers is the one built by the lepers themselves. One makes you a victim, one makes you complicit. We are becoming complicit in our own enslavement, wailing impotently, demanding change from those who profit from the situation we are asking to be changed. At what point, pray? Exactly at what point is enough going to be enough? If we are not going to go out on the streets, if that's too difficult because we are afraid of them, how about sitting in your home for one day? I really don't have much to say anymore. Yorubas will say this. Tí mo bá sọ fún yín, tí mo gbé iná ń jó lórí omi, ẹni kí n kérú ẹ̀ wá, ẹyẹ jiyàn. If I told you that there is fire atop the waters, stop arguing with me. Demand the ashes of me. I am telling you here and now, the result for 2027 elections across the length and breadth of Nigeria without leaving a single thing to chance have already been written. If you wait until 2027, we've lost already. Not only have we lost election, we've lost our lives, we've lost road, we've lost hope. They said renewed hope. Now lie. These ones have come to evaporate hope. And I'm telling you here and now, get off your lazy ass. Get off your lazy ass. I don't talk my own no. This one don't pass the Gontuenchi. This is tell ourselves what to do. This one is not about this is what is happening. That's the person to blame. We've done enough of that. This is time to do something. This is not time for 2027. I fold my hands, don't they look for 2027. If you dare to sit down and wait for 2027, I tell you here and now, 2027 is already lost. One day with purpose, we are demanding the Electoral Act be amended. And those two are irreducible minimums. One, electronic transfer from the polling unit level. Two, independent candidacy for Nigerians. If it's a democracy, there shouldn't be bars holding people from access to it. I've had my say, and I hope you've heard. I don't say I'm past as I don't talk. What you do with it is entirely in your hands. Have you a blessed week ahead of you? But remember, by this time next week, when we are meeting, may God preserve all of us. I imagine that we would have had sufficient time to debate this proposal amongst ourselves. If sufficient consensus might be had, then we definitely should hold December 3rd as a sit-at-home nationwide. Thank you very much. God bless you all.